All right, so in our last example that we were talking about, right, we were trying to put ourselves in the role. First, we imagined what it was like as a kid, right? Where we're trying to steal these cookies because they taste good and we're cookie monsters. But now we're going to play a different role, right? In this case, we have a nice little brown tan. We have these eyes right here. And let's see, what else? You know, down. You have a single tear there, right? And we're displeased, right? Because our child has decided to disobey us, and we're a little upset, right? So we have like these like steam clouds. We'll put some ears, um, and we're bald. But we have these little steam clouds coming out, right? Because we are frustrated and mad, right? And we've decided that something needs to happen, right? We've decided in this little decision pathway that we need to punish, right? Now the thing is that when we decide to punish, right, we know we want to do it, right? But as a parent, there are two different paths that we can go in this process, right? In path one, right, we go this way, and we decide, what it would be like a different reason for punishing, maybe to get even, right? In a different pathway, if we go out this way, in order to maybe not get even, right, we take more of a utilitarian approach where we want to get something out of our punishment, right? So in this way, we have these two decision points, right? We know we want to punish, but we are trying to go about it for two different ways, right? One, again, is to get something out of it. Two is more to get even. So when we think about like what this like decision pathway is, right? If we choose to get even, right, there's a one way to like think about it, right? This, if we're getting even, is retribution. And so when we think about retribution, the reason why that we employ or think about this kind of punishment, right, the rationale for this punishment thinking, is to give people their just desserts. Note the spelling here is spelled like deserts, but it's pronounced desserts. It does not have the S. I know you might think that because we're talking about cookies, but that is not the case in this situation, right? So the goal of this is to do some sort of eye for an eye kind of thing, right? Where we keep in mind, right, that we're supposed to get even for what occurred and to rectify a wrong, right? So the punishment in this case then is supposed to be balanced, it's supposed to be equal to what came into place. And again, the goal is just to get even. There's no other reason for committing the punishment, right? All right, so we established that so far. Now, the other part to consider, right, I guess maybe I should have started with this, but I didn't, and that's my fault, right, is that when we think about this idea of punishment right here, we do this, right, because we want to correct or rectify law breaking or rule breaking, depending on how you look at it. We're also doing it to, this has to, come from an authority figure. These can't be arbitrary. So we can't just be like, guess what, Timmy, dig a hole, then fill it back in later just because I told you to, right? And so what the point is that this is supposed to be intentional, meaning that there is a reason behind it and not just doing it for the sake of it. So keep that part in mind about punishment. If we think about utilitarian approaches with respect to committing crime, then we have a couple different paths, right? So out of this branch, right, one is deterrence, which I'm just going to call deterrence, right? Underneath like this little tree, there are some things that we maybe want to do that we want to like keep in mind, right? So if we deter, one is to be specific, right? So what does this mean? So if we punish the person who committed the crime in the first place, then we are targeting that individual. The goal then of a punishment is to make sure that individual does not commit crime in the future, right? So at this point, then, the goal is to target and prevent behavior in the future. We're going to turn off Wi-Fi because otherwise I'm going to get New York Times updates all the time, right? Another aspect of deterrence, then, is in general, or like into a population, then, right? So the goal of this punishment is to send a message to either a broader community, or like to other parts of society that this behavior is unacceptable, and there are negative consequences to breaking a rule or a law. In this case, if our cookie example, right, that maybe if someone has a sibling of some kind, when I was growing up, that was my sister. I was often made the example and be like, all right, Katie, like this is what happens if you break the law. So the point being is that, there is some use out of this behavior. We have, we do the punishment to get something out of it, to prevent it from happening again. Another branch that we can think about, right, is if we incapacitate people. So when we think about incapacitation, we'll use a different color here. What we end up doing then, right, is that we want to isolate or lock up someone because they're either viewed as dangerous, they're a harm to the public, their actions could really harm and endanger other people, right? So the goal of incapacitation and locking people up is to prevent them from committing future crimes or future misbehaviors, right? So in this case, then, if we're isolating and locking up, then, maybe this means putting someone in their room or, putting someone in solitary confinement or giving them a long sentence, right? The goal out of this, right, is that there is this ultimate more protection. In the case of cookies, we're protecting the cookies themselves, right? Maybe the cookie jar as well. Someone is not very good at, stealing stuff and they end up, breaking the cookie jar or something like that. So this is another usage pattern that comes out of it. Another thing to keep in mind, right, is that if we, continue this example, we also maybe want to rehabilitate people. So we'll pick a different color. No, maybe not that one because we already used it. What's the color we haven't used? We'll use this purple one. So if we rehabilitate people, what we're trying to do is to fix and correct bad behavior. So we're not necessarily focused on, just the one incident, right? It could be flawed that someone has a problem that they need to deal with. And in some ways, right, like, the idea is to set them on the right path, right? So this doesn't mean that we're excusing the behavior or not decrying it, because you should do that. However, there is more than just giving you a harsh punishment or giving you a punishment to stop you from doing it again, right? It's more of a learning kind of practice where we come in and we do this, right? Or we come in and try to fix the behavior. So in the case of this cookie example, right, we could think about maybe, the offending child has like a real taste for sweets, right, and is really like addicted to that kind of thing. So in that case, then maybe it means, we're going to remove the temptation. So we'll change something about the environment and take the cookies away. That is one way to do it. Or it could just be like teaching the child, like, hey, you know what? Instead of eating the cookie, I know you like really sweet things. Maybe you should learn to like fruit, right? It has the sugar content, tastes great. I personally love holiday grapes. Oh, those are so good. Or the cotton candy grapes. Oh, so good. So maybe we help the child, because that way, hey, you're getting some fiber, you're hitting your fruit diet. This is, it's not going to be, it's low carb, so maybe it's like better have a diet thing. It could also be something related to impulse control, right? So teaching that, well, we can't always do that because, your tummy gets upset when you have too many cookies. It's not a good look. We don't have to deal with it. You get grumpy. eat them too fast, or maybe, you know, we're concerned about weight gain or something, so we got to teach you some other things and behaviors in order to, you know, make that right. Right. So those are the goal. Ultimate goal then is to stop and prevent future behavior by working on it and fixing other people. Another aspect to consider there's a lot more utilitarian approaches to crime, I guess, to keep that in mind, right? So the other part is that sometimes we do try to restore people. So we have restoration as a purpose. So in this case, then, you know, what we'd want to do is have the offender acknowledge the wrong, right? So we say, hey, you done goofed, and you know that. And we want that person to be like, yeah, I goofed, right? We know that there's damage. You know, maybe there's fewer cookies now. Not everyone can enjoy them. It was seen as a selfish behavior. Maybe someone moved in the community and you were making cookies for them, and then now they were taken away, and now we can no longer welcome to the community property or something like that, right? And so what we try to do, right, is to have some way to give, you know, back to society. So it's like, okay, well, because you took the cookies and no one else could enjoy them, we are now going to require you to make cookies in order to rectify the wrong in the community, because you took something from the family. Now no one can eat them because you were greedy. So now that could really happen, right? That happened with I have a friend who has 4 children, is expecting number 5. His girls, 2 of his girls got into the snacks that were reserved for the mom. The mom was like, stop eating those, I'm pregnant. And so then they had to make new snacks to replace the ones that they ate that were reserved for their mom. Which I think it was kind of funny, right? But in the end, then, part of acknowledging it is be like, hey, this was wrong. And repairing the damage is to not have someone feel bad about who they are or think that they're an outcast or an outlier, but acknowledging what they did was wrong, confronting what was happening, and then rectifying it, right? So that's ultimately, these sort of philosophies we have towards punishment. And it also kind of dictates how we treat people, how we go about, if they committed a crime, what we do to them if they're in trouble, and how do we go about it, right? So kind of keep these in mind as we think about these different, pathways that are related to punishment.